Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Den of Lore. I'm just going to adjust my camera here. There we go. Yes, it is a bottle of Lagavulin 16. It's a special occasion because I've got a special gentleman on the show. But first, before we begin, to whomever needs to read this, let me tell you a story about the amazing creatures that once roamed the earth. Dinosaurs, mammoths, and other giants of folklore were once rulers of the planet. These majestic beasts had everything going for them, but still, they couldn't stand the test of time. They perished. Why, you ask? Because they couldn't adapt to the changing circumstances of the world. They refused to learn, refused to change, and refused to evolve. So if you're feeling stuck in life, learn from these creatures. Learn to adapt, to change, to evolve. Don't be like them. Don't let the changing world around you get the better of you. Persevere, learn, grow. Remember, those who don't evolve don't survive. Don't be like those creatures. Don't go extinct. At least, or so they say. So let's get started. Denver Michaels is an author, researcher, and podcast host with a passion for cryptozoology, myths, and legends. He has authored several, it says several here, many several of books on the subject, including People Are Seeing Something, a survey of the lake monsters in the United States and Canada, which explores the phenomena of lake monsters of North America. Michael's work is interdisciplinary, drawing on a large range of fields including biology, zoology, and anthropology. His research is well known for its innovative and thought-provoking approach to the study of cryptozoology and has received both praise and some criticism from scholars in the field. It's mostly because they're jealous, because he's got that sexy voice. In addition to his writing, Michaels is one of the hosts of the podcast, the Denver Michaels, the podcast. Really?
No,
No.
I don't know. I don't know where all the podcast stuff is coming from, but
It's,
I mean, whatever. I'll take it.
Okay, well, I've been using. I'm a one-man show with a very good helper in Audrey in the back, and we're still working the kinks out. I've been using ChatGTP, seeing how that's helped us save me time. As they say, it can generate some wrong answers. Either way, so Michaels is the host of the Denver Michaels podcast. Where he continues to explore the mysterious and unexplained. He's also appeared as a guest on various other podcasts, and believe it or not, it generated this, including Den of Lore, where he is about to discuss his works on extant dinosaurs, mammoths, and other giants of folklore. Denver Michaels' work has contributed significantly to the growing body of literature seeking to understand the mysteries of the world, and his innovative and interdisciplinary approach to the study of cryptozoology has garnered the attention of scholars and enthusiasts alike. Ladies, gentlemen, and pineapples of all ages, please grab your scotch and pull a chair up to the fire, and welcome Denver back to the Den of Lore. Cheers to folks. Cheers to good sir.
Yeah, that was a nice intro. I mean, I've not really heard that many people give me all that much praise or say I'm innovative or anything like that. But I mean, hell, man, I'll take it.
I told the you got to keep it spicy. It's so if there is criticism, there may be some criticism out there. There's a lot of praise. The last time we talked, you were still in Virginia.
Yeah,
that was a long time ago. Obviously, a lot has happened.
I was trying to think, all the years, now that I'm getting older, all the years are starting to run together. So, I mean, like, when was the last? Was that like 2018, 2019? It's probably 2018.
I think it was. I think it was actually 2019. I'm fairly certain Laird was the last one. I could be wrong, but yeah, no, it's been a while.
It's been a while. It's been a few years.
I'm extremely tired.
Yeah. I was just trying to remember when the last time we got together was, and yeah, it's been quite a few years now.
I know the last time we got together, we had been talking about, at least the books that have been coming out, and I know that like at that point in time, there was a lot of work going into Men of Renown, which, believe it or not, is actually available in Walmart in Canada. Sold out at this point, which is kind of cool.
That's cool. Yeah. Who who would have thought?
It's a popular subject, and like from all those time, whether we're talking back in the early 2015 days when we were reviewing sandwiches, or doing Crypto Corner, and I think the third or fourth best video on the channel was our video on the Tasmanian Devil, and we did a couple of those.
Yeah. Got a little hate mail too, but that was that was kind of fun actually. The the hate mail was
I don't even remember what the
kind
hate
of
mail was
funny.
about. It's
I can't either. I think it was something like I don't know, something like you two jackasses are stupid, just your basic, people on YouTube. I mean, all the social media platforms, they've all got their own type of crowds, but YouTube commenters are probably among the nastiest of the or can be. I don't want to
no,
lump them
no.
all
I can
together,
be.
but the YouTube commenters, they can be a pretty rough crowd. I was on this, and that's a lot of reason I don't even look at the comments or follow along in the live chat anymore, because I was following along on a live chat on this one podcast I was on, and I mean the people were killing me.
What,
So I'm like, man, I can't
like
can't pay
what were they?
attention to
What were
this.
they saying? Like,
I just, this, this guy's a stupid idiot. Why'd you have him on for, just
stupid.
you
Don't
know,
you have like 3 degrees?
no, I have like 0 degrees.
Oh, I thought you were. Well, you always presented stuff in such a logical way, and you can write better than I can. Like,
Well, you know how people are. It was a podcast, I think, that wasn't, it wasn't necessarily one that's geared toward the unexplained. It was some young guys. I think they were like really kind of gamers. I don't know. Maybe they had me on for a joke or something. Who knows? But usually if somebody asks me, I'll do their podcast. And anyway, long story short, I'm just talking about how
well, kids suck. They've
people in
always
people
sucked.
in the YouTube comments can get after you a little bit.
Well, you're in a safe place now, Denver. Yeah, I did, as I was joking, and I have joked many times. My mom's like, "Well, what are you doing tonight?" I'm like, "Well, I've got the show at 10 o'clock." She's like, "Really? Yeah." It's like, "Guess who's on? What? Denver?" She's like, "Oh." Like,
Well,
I'll send you the link.
hello, Mrs. Chris's mom. How are you,
There you go.
Lois?
That works. Uh, it's it's like it's the running gag of running gags, and I love it. Now, for all the people who are going to watch this, the at least for the dozens and dozens who have realized that we're back on the air, because work be work and family, and they come first. So it's like 6 weeks of promo time. It's like I got a day for the first episode way back when, and now it's like, okay, well, you got to keep it fun, and people will get into the groove.
Yeah.
So within like that time frame, a lot of people may not know necessarily who you are. I know who you are.
Right,
I
right.
know. At least I used to know what kind of truck you drive. I used to know, you know, what your favorite lunch meats were, whether you prefer, like cargo pants with pockets on the side or what have you when you're out and about. Dark khaki, by the way. Uh, Most people don't know. So, like, what exactly got you into this entire crazy world of cryptozoology, knowing exactly how, well, it's an interesting bunch. We'll put it
Yeah.
mildly.
Well, I can't really point to any one particular thing. I mean, and a lot of people find that weird. They find it kind of strange that someone that didn't have a Bigfoot sighting as a kid, or a UFO sighting as a kid, or didn't grow up in a haunted house, would be into all these unexplained things that I'm into. But for whatever reason, I can't point to any one particular thing that pushed me in this direction. But I don't know, I've just always kind of been wired toward unexplained things. I think back when I was a kid, I mean, I would I'd go to the library, check out any books of anything weird I could find. I was a pretty avid reader, but more like nonfiction stuff. I mean, I would just like sit and read encyclopedias in the in the summer when I was a kid. And I was just always into I guess I've never really bought anything that teachers or authority figures would tell me. I remember I was like 7 years old one time at the dinner table, and I don't know what provoked me to do this, but I just kind of like looked at my dad and I'm like, Columbus didn't discover America. And he's, oh yeah, right. And of course, he didn't want to hear my 7-year-old dissertation on pre-Columbian contact in the Americas. but the long story short, I've just always
It's
really kind of questioned everything, and like here we are.
it's like I can imagine 7-year-old. You're like, he didn't discover it. By 10, it's like you're throwing out this, Solutrean hypothesis. It's like
Yeah, I'm
they
just
used boats and they followed the coast. Damn it!
it's like really, Dad. It's not that it's not that hard. I mean, if you're going to tell me that Polynesians traveled 2,000 miles in canoes to settle Hawaii, why couldn't anybody have been in Virginia or Texas or Florida, in
I-
1200 AD, right? I mean, why couldn't they? It's stupid to think that it couldn't have happened.
it's like we don't. I'm going to say, like, we got a pretty good idea as far as, uh, like, we got a pretty good idea as far as mainstream academia will go, and with when it comes to alternative history, there's going to be diverging fields, and sometimes it's plausible, sometimes it's way out of left field. It's like you got to follow the evidence. I've always found, and even if that evidence seems a little bit crazy, or you got a hunch, it's like, is it logical? Is it possible? Can we? Is it provable? Is there at least something that can link it to it? Like, what's the chain that gets you back there? If you're just going to say no completely and not at least entertain the possibility, even if your whole thing is to try and prove it wrong, if you're proving it wrong based on you know established tenets, uh, like sometimes primary research is going to be is going to trump that as far as comparing the two. I know with your investigations, especially when you're dealing with prehistoric creatures, like, did you have any goal in mind when you first started out, or is it more just a like, hey, I'm gonna do this, and like, oh, somebody said, well, why don't you write a book about it, or somebody on a dare said, oh, why don't you put some words down, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Well, really, um, yeah, this is going to sound kind of weird, but like after like around my 40th birthday, I'm 49 now. So around my 40th birthday, man, I guess I kind of had like a really kind of like a midlife crisis almost. I
But
mean,
you're
I didn't go buy a sports car, start running around with younger women or nothing like that. But I really got kind of depressed because I was, and all, I'm sure pretty much all of your listeners can relate to it. You're just you're in the grind. You're just working, working, working. I'm working a job. I'm making good money, but it's just not fulfilling. I just don't enjoy anything I do. You just watching the clock. For the weekend. The weekend comes. You're right. By about 2 o'clock on Sunday, I'm getting depressed because I got to go start it all over again.
Sunday
Just
scaries. Yeah,
it just really, just really got in a bad place. And I mean, I was there for, I mean, like a year and a half, man. And I don't know. Something just kind of clicked in me that, like I wanted to start writing. That's just really, I just feel like, that's what I'm happy doing. That's what I enjoy doing. I just even when I'm just writing writing blog posts for my website, right? I mean, I just enjoy doing it. Whether a whole lot of people read it or not, it really doesn't even matter. I just kind of have fun doing that. And so that's sort of what led me to start, pursuing the writing part. And as far as, what I wanted to write about, I mean, there was no question in my mind that I wanted to, write about some of these unexplained things that I had, really kind of studied, my whole life, really. And, my first book was about lake monsters because, I don't know, it's just to me, out of all of the, cryptid creatures out there, right? That's the one that that could really, you could really see it existing without, having to throw any supernatural interpretations or what have you. Like a lot of your Bigfoot reports, people talk about it disappearing or glowing red eyes, this or that. But these lake monsters and sea serpents, with all of the water we have, and just all of the, we don't really know about, what's in the lurking in the depths, and there's just such a similarity all over the world in these reports. It just seems like, out of all of these unexplained creatures out there, it could be the most likely to exist. And so, I just, started writing about it, and, from there, I, picked up other topics and blah, blah, blah.
Well, now, William, who's in the chat, because he's a gentleman and a scholar like ourselves. He says, he's like, I know it's early in the program, but he's got to ask, what are your thoughts about the efforts to bring back extinct species like the dodo, great auk, and the mammoth?
Um, I I'm not a fan of it. I think once it, and even if it's humans' fault, right? Just not a big fan. I mean, like what could possibly go wrong, right? If we're bringing stuff back that's been extinct for hundreds or thousands of years. I
Well,
mean, it just,
the dodo's delicious, from what I understand.
yeah, I just, you just, I'm just not a big fan of this stuff because there's always that law of unintended consequences, and you just never know. I mean, just when they, animals that are on the brink of extinction, and then they, they reintroduce them in places. I mean, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, it brings a whole host of, can bring a whole host of issues and things, like, how they reintroduce wolves, and like out in, Montana and stuff. I mean, the ranchers out there hate them, and even the bison. I mean, that can affect your, that they've reintroduced in places. That can affect cattle herds, and things like that. So there's just all these things, and I just don't know that it's really our place to, bring back herds of woolly mammoths, or this or that.
It's like, did anybody watch, like, how many Jurassic Park movies are there now?
Yeah,
It's
yeah. It's like, did nobody fucking watch Jurassic Park? Has nobody watched The Island of Dr. Moreau? I mean, like, all you
nobody
got to
watched
do
the
is
Island of
watch
Dr. Moreau.
TV.
If you want,
There's just, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Just personally, me, I would like to see that money maybe like diverted to, like, I don't know, cancer research or something. Call me crazy.
well, there you go. It makes a lot of sense. Again, I'm not even sure if some of these are like educational, or if they're being privately funded. If
Yeah, yeah,
it's kind of like, like, if somebody wants to do something crazy with their money, can you really
yeah,
tell them to stop? It's at the same time, like, mammoths are kind of cool. Uh, I'm not even sure what a great auk is. I'm sure it's like it's great, and maybe it makes an ox sound. I don't have a Jamie, so I can't bring stuff up, unfortunately. But like, was there like a creature specifically? I know you were looking at lake monsters. Like, was there was it Nessie? Was it Ogopogo? Like, what really got your attention?
Well, I think it was the fact that there are. It's not one in particular. Like I can really point to like when I was a kid in high school, I used to watch Unsolved Mysteries every Wednesday night. That was my deal. I guess I was a junior in high school, and they had those like 3-part segments, and one of them was on the Ogopogo, and something that really jumped out at me. They did a graphic, and it showed how like put these little red dots on the map all over the world, and how there were like 60 different locations where these lake monsters were being spotted. And I think that really, for whatever reason, that really stuck with me. And as I got older and read more about it, kind of learned more about it, yeah, you could see that it's pretty much a worldwide phenomenon, and there's so much similarity between, say, the Loch Ness monster and Tahoe Tessie out in California. Like Champ up in Vermont and New York. It's pretty much the same, and so it really kind of made me think that there's possibly a population of these things.
Do you think it's also possible? Like, I got to be a little subjective, although I'm a lot calmer in my old sleep deprived age. Um, as I think you warned me about this, like Chris, wait until you have kids, you'll understand. Like,
Yeah,
um,
it don't get no easier either.
no, but
F-
it's part of.
FYI.
It's not about it. It's the journey, not the destination. It's a Brandon Sanders. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
Stormlight Archive. It's a high fantasy series. Go read it, people. It's fantastic. Um, what about sturgeon? Like, they're ancient. They're like basically the final, the final form of this giant fish boss or anime character. It's like, it takes, just like Frieza in Dragon Ball Z. It took how many millions of years for this thing to evolve into its final form, and these things can grow massive. So is that a possibility that people are seeing that, like, or like, do we act, is it more likely that there are sturgeon that have been alive for, let's say, like 150 200 years, have never been caught, and are just so big that they could snap a line, and they're just these honking like 10-15 feet massive things, and or is it more of like a dinosaur, water creature that's just left over and found some suitable deep water that is left alone? Like, how?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the latter, but yeah, are some of these sightings sturgeons? Yeah, sure. Right? I mean, absolutely. And then, down in the southern US, yeah, some of these sightings are probably alligator gar. I mean, those things get, 10, 12 feet long. And, the sturgeons you're talking about, my daughter, her ex-boyfriend saw him uh, last year, and he showed me this picture, this sturgeon he caught out in Idaho. I mean, the thing was like, it was over 10 feet long. I mean, like three of them were holding it up. I mean, it's just enormous, massive. So yeah, that is absolutely a part of it. But to blame the whole phenomenon on that, it just doesn't work for me. That's kind of like how they just put this study out. I just started reading about it like probably last week, how they're saying, areas with black bears experience, more Bigfoot sightings, and,
It's the
blah,
woods,
blah,
of
blah. So
course.
the whole conclusion is, that all your Bigfoot sightings are bears. Well, I mean, I could have told you that there's more Bigfoot sightings where bears live, because guess what? there's cover. There's if a bear can live there, then guess what? Then you know 7 foot tall bipedal ape could live there too. But yeah, I mean bears are absolutely misidentified Bigfoot. I mean, no question. And you know what? That's a lot of your Sasquatch tracks. That's a double step where a bear like kind of like its back paw steps in, and kind of looks like a supposed Bigfoot track. I mean, it happened. That's absolutely a part of it, but it's not a good explanation for the phenomenon as a whole. And that's what I'm talking about here with the lake monsters. Yes, and like with your sturgeons, there's a lot of reports of these lake monsters where sturgeons don't even live in the waters. So if it is a sturgeon in some of those cases, well, then
Well, what is it? Yeah.
that's a pretty cool thing too, that there's a sturgeon here where there's not supposed to be. But sturgeons, they don't have a neck that sticks out of the water 4 feet in the air like some of these reports. So yeah, I think it explains a lot, but it doesn't cover the whole thing.
I had in a former life. I had former life a couple of jobs ago. Very very great company. Good people. I still talk to a lot of them there. One of my coworkers was she used to take walks around the park area, which was fairly wooded, and I think it was near one of either the lakes or the rivers within the northern parts of the city, or it's like you got the main river going through it and several rivers that break off, and whether they're part of the same source. Anyway, I kind of digress on this. She was very very disturbed because she was attacked, like something huge came out of the forest cover, and she's like, I don't know what it was. It was this alien like creature, and it just got real big, and then it ran at me, and she just took off like a rocket, ran back home, and it was saying like I was attacked by a monster, an alien, or something, and it's like, yeah, okay, well, just describe it, and she went through it, and it ended up, at least it's a possibility that it still was an alien or some type of chupacabra like creature. But in our area, wild turkeys are extremely common, to the point where
Mhm.
downtown they're a pest. The pigeons are
Yeah.
scared of them, and as anybody knows who lives anywhere near some type of turkey refuge, they're extremely territorial. Like,
They can be assholes. They're
yes,
and aggressive. Yeah.
they will
Yeah.
get larger and they will charge at you, and they're fast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a possibility. So like misidentification could happen. Just you got fear,
Yeah.
you've got adrenaline, you have, again, I'm playing devil's
Sure.
advocate here, but at the
No.
same time, it's
And,
there's always that case.
I'm with you 1,000% on that stuff. But here's kind of how I look at it. Like I call it, and this isn't anything innovative. Other people have said the same thing. I call it the 5% or maybe 10% rule. Yeah, probably 90 to 95% of this stuff is a logical explanation, right? Misidentification, this or that. It's the 5%, it's the 10%. So when you have a guy, that's an avid hunter. I mean, I know guys. I mean, hell, I used to be. I don't hunt anymore, but back in my early 20s, huge hunter. Especially bow hunter. I used to hunt all the time. But I mean, I know guys that are so into hunting, they've like ruined their marriages. I'm not kidding, because that's like they're just never home. All they want to do is like hunt deer and stuff like that. So when people that like ruin their marriages, and I know people that have like lost their job because like, nope, I'm going deer hunting. I'm not going into work on Monday. I mean, I know people like that, and when guys like that are out in the woods and then spot one of these creatures, and they won't go hunting anymore because of it. Okay, they didn't see a black bear. You know what I'm saying? they know what a bear looks like. Yeah, so it's when you get those kind of reports, or just like real detailed reports where that it couldn't have been a bear, or whatever the mystery we're talking
Like,
about.
do these kind of reports make it more fun? Because even if the source is coming from, as you said, it's a guy who he'll skip work and he'll let his marriage fall apart for going hunting, and he's always out in the woods and with his buddies. If it's like, is it hearing the stories? Is it like trying to be able to ascertain from the character and the story being told in the situation whether he's telling the truth or full of it or not? Like, how, when you're doing the investigation, uh, what's your favorite part of at least learning about the story?
Well, for me, I mean, I just enjoy, when people will, reach out to me and share their experience with me. I mean, that's number one. And, I've had, countless people, through my website, or, you know, um, DMing me on Twitter, this or that, share their experiences. And, sometimes you can tell it, a lot of times it's just somebody that just wants to talk. You know what I mean? It's like, maybe maybe their experience is I don't know, that doesn't sound quite right. And maybe some people reach out because they just want to chit chat with you, and that's cool. But the fact that people will trust you enough, that I'm not just like gonna bust out laughing, or tell them they're stupid, because a lot of people, have reached out about, something they saw out in the water, out in the woods, and they're like, like, you're the first person I've told this to, I didn't, or like, I told my dad about this, I told my wife about this, and now I'm telling you, so to, the fact that people would kind of trust you with that, that for me is like the coolest thing about it.
Well, you're an
And then from
approachable
there,
guy. Like, people
I'm
want to talk to you. You're warm, you're inviting, you're intelligent, you're personable. Like, heck, who would want to sit down and have a beer and say, like, man, this crazy shit happened, and you got to hear this, but I swear it happened. You're like, hey, man, hit me.
yeah, I
Non-judgmental.
mean, I just think it's cool that that people would trust you, with that information. And so for me, right, I mean, I just work under the assumption that that most people that contact me like that they're being genuine. I'm not just going to assume somebody's got some bad motive or something for contacting me. And usually, what I found is, I have found a couple stories that I've sort of debunked, or not so much debunked, but like, yeah, this guy, he's full of shit. But usually, it's never anything. What am I trying to say? It's I'm trying to look for what I'm there's nothing there's no ill intent behind it. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Maybe they just their social circle isn't big enough, or they just enjoyed the email back and forth, this or that, but I've not seen anything where there's like any ill intent behind it. I mean, because let's face it, I mean, you tell me your story. I mean, I'm not going to have you on Dateline, and you're not going to get some lucrative book deal, or TV show
Well,
out of
what
it.
about the
I'm just
Denver
I'm just
Michaels
some fucking
podcast?
guy.
What about the
Yeah,
Denver Michaels
that
podcast?
yeah,
Chat
that
GTP
podcast that doesn't
says you
exist.
got, well, man, you got to make it then, because the internet's saying that it's real. You got to
Oh yeah,
manifest.
that's funny. That's funny that the internet's saying I've got a podcast. I mean, how are my ratings? Is it successful? That
Oh no,
that
man, they're about as good as mine right now. So,
so they suck.
well, no, I have
You
to
won't
say,
have any ratings after tonight.
we are our first video back with Laird was fantastic, and the thing is that the people whom I've been talking to, like, I never really lost touch with them. They still on my Facebook. I still
Yeah.
communicated with them. It's just like, I, it's when you have enough, and you're like, I got It's change the diapers, make sure the kid stays alive, keep the wife
Yeah.
relatively happy, or at least, don't tick her off on a constant basis. Those are priorities. Um,
Yeah.
uh, being stalked by Kabbalah cults because you said something, and they're like, you know, it's,
Yeah, you'll have that.
well, as I said, like I've matured. I've discovered a lot about myself,
Yeah.
and it's water off a great ox back to a certain extent. It's just,
Yeah.
people are going to be
Yeah.
people, and people are going to have their criticisms. And
Yeah, you're right. And like for me, man, this stuff should be fun.
yes,
And like that's why I started writing these books. I didn't start writing books and being on people's podcasts to to beat my point of view into people's heads or really even try to change anybody's mind about stuff. It's just,
it
for
doesn't
me,
work.
it's fun. And then when you get to and I've done this myself and I really rein myself in. You get to this point, you see people out there and they're just hoaxing or they're just so full of it, and you just see all this stuff, and if you let it bother you, it just takes all the fun out of it. And I just got to where, like, I really don't care what people do. I'm just going to do what I do. There's going to be people that like it, there's going to be people that don't, and I reach who I reach, and who I don't. And just like, I really don't care. I'm just doing my thing. And the moment it stops being fun, I'm out. I'll just quit. I'll take down my website and all that stuff, because I really got to a place, a couple years ago, where things just stopped being fun. And
Yeah, and
that's not that's
no,
I
it's
if it's ever not fun anymore, if I lose that childlike wonder about the unexplained, then forget it. I'm done. I'm going to yank the website. I'm going to go on Amazon, delist all my books, and you'll never hear from me again.
which is a good indication that everyone, just in case, you can go to denvermichaels.net and you can request a signed book from this man right here. So get in case it happens, just go there, go buy them all,
It
and just
won't happen, but if it if things get where it's not fun anymore, yeah, I'm out, because it's that's like why I started writing. That's why I do this, because it's stuff that I enjoy. And if it's not enjoyable, then what the hell am I doing? So I like you're saying, how you kind of went through like a realignment with yourself. I kind of did that too, in a lot of ways. And people that read my newer books compared to my older stuff, you probably even see that in there. I'm just
now speaking of your old
you know
books, and unfortunately, unfortunately, I'm going to show them to you in a couple of days when I can I can dig myself out of the 9 to 5 and then 5 to whenever work hole. Um,
yeah
as anybody knows, that I actually designed two of Denver's um, books or book covers, which was Water Monsters South of the Border and Wild and Wonderful and Paranormal West Virginia, which are two of the most phenomenal books, I think, in his entire corpus of work. Um, so I've been working on a little bit of an updated for a second edition for the man. Uh,
Ooh,
I want to support this guy 110%. He's been there for me since the beginning of the show. You were our second guest ever, and you put up with a lot
but
from me. And I could and like I've believed in your work, whether I've either agreed with it, thought it was amazing, said maybe. I still think for somebody who's got as much passion, the fact you can do it at a level so consistently for so long, it deserves better work than I could do then, knowing that I've improved, and anything that I can do to be able to contribute to your work after the fact, down the road, it's it's part of lifting people up. You got to support your friends. You got to support the people who are there for you, and because at the end of the day, we're all a community. Um, and sometimes the community can get fractured. Sometimes the community can be crazy. Sometimes the community can be drinking Kool Aid. Sometimes they can be enjoying a nice 16-year Scotch.
Yeah,
Um,
nice.
but that's the one thing I think we as like an internet sphere need to get back to. Like we don't division sells, negativity sells. People want to get
Yeah,
angry. You know what, man? We're all tired. We're like we got
yeah,
mortgages to pay. Mortgages are more expensive. You want to go on a trip somewhere? Good luck. You're paying twice the amount for gas, five times the amount for cheese, or heaven forbid you buy some lettuce, which up here in Canada is pretty crazy right now. It's like I think I've
yeah,
seen heads of lettuce for like $15. I'm like, you kidding me? Like, I'll grow the stuff myself. Uh,
yeah. And it don't even taste good.
you know what, man? You don't make friends with lettuce
Yeah,
or
no,
salad.
it's
Well, you don't
just
make friends with salad, but you
yeah,
do with sandwiches. And you
yeah.
put lettuce on sandwiches, a little bit of mayo, some gray poupon, a couple of olives. Send
There you
I had yeah. It's been a busy day. I'm kind of hungry right now.
go.
It's like oh my goodness, like give me a good double decker club with like 6 slices of bacon and some tomato, like thin cut. Put some chipotle mayo on there, a little bit of salt, little anyway. Um, where is the craziest place you've been besides the Amazon? Because we can you hear me?
What? Repeat that. Where was what?
What is the craziest place you've been? Like you said that you were called out to places to meet with people and to talk with people. Like every now and again, they're going to say, "Hey, like, come check out my, X location," or "This is where it happened." Like, have
Yeah.
you ever been in a situation where you're like, "I'm going to die tonight. This guy's friends are going to roll me and steal my truck"? Like,
Uh yeah. That's hard to say. I mean, I don't do a whole lot of like meeting up with people like that. Most of the field stuff I do, I'm just totally alone. I'm trying to think of. I mean, I'll tell you a place that I really
but wait, if you're alone, how do you
didn't.
take all those selfies where you're like really far back?
Well, sometimes, like when sometimes my wife will be with me, like if it's like a hike that's got a nice view. Yeah, but if it's just like me stomping around in the woods, she's got to have a payoff, right, to walk 7 miles back in the woods or something. There's got to be a nice view or something. So usually on those, she'll be with me. But I'm trying to think here, like. I'll tell you, like a place I really did not like, and people get sensitive about you. They think if you're bagging on their town or this or that. But up in Massachusetts, I was up there back in the spring, and there's an area they call the Bridgewater Triangle. It's supposed to be all kinds of weirdness and all that. And I went around to a bunch of those places. I went like out in the Hockomock Swamp and all that. But the one place I did not like was the Freetown Falls State Forest, and it was really more, like you get there and you're thinking about like Bigfoot sightings and all that, right? But you get there and there's like graffiti everywhere. There's trash everywhere.
It's a
So,
teenage
I
hangout
like
spot,
I like
basically.
went back to the RV and had the wife, like drive me out there and just like drop me off because I didn't want to park my car there
Mhm.
because I was afraid I was going to come back and my tires would be slashed or this or that. So, like if you got to do stuff like that, you're kind of wondering if you're gonna like stumble into some meth heads or something like that when you're out in the woods. And so I really didn't like that place. I kind of had my head on a swivel the whole time. Didn't really enter, didn't I think I was like a Tuesday or Wednesday, so I didn't really run into anybody. Didn't have any kind of any of these strange phenomena take place. Didn't really see anything that blew my skirt up as far as like Bigfoot evidence that a
Oh,
lot of people say they come across there. But that was a place I didn't like.
like,
You know, pl-
well,
oh, go ahead.
you're an
Sorry.
American. Well, again, I'm not trying to be able to paint all Americans with the same brush here, but there was a certain right to self-defense and to bear arms, especially if there's a possibility of bear arms attacking you in the woods. Like, are you bringing bear spray, any type of protection?
Well, I mean, I don't. They won't. As far as I know, they won't let you.
Well, black
You know,
bears are.
strap a gun or anything on in Massachusetts. But I
Okay.
always, I'll always have a lot of times I do carry a can of bear spray, and it's usually more for people. So much I'm more afraid of people than I am bears. But yeah, like even a lot of places, that I was back in the spring when I was down in Florida, I was out in the green swamp out there. They do have some bears and stuff, but really more in case you run across somebody hopped up on bath salt or something like that.
So you're not eating my face today, buddy.
uh,
Oh, jeez. Well, that was that. I was doing research on like the Tales of Florida Man book. It's completely different design.
yeah, it's a little different down there, but I
A
like
little
it.
bit.
I mean, I'm actually a Florida resident now. I'm a lot of people hate on Florida, but I'm a fan.
Hey, home's where
But
the heart is
it
where the
is a
home.
little bit crazy. I mean, nobody can deny it's a kind of a crazy place.
Like, going more into like again, we're gonna take a step back here, a few thousand years, a few million years. Well, we'll go with a few thousand years first. We'll work up to it. If we're talking about out in the woods, we got Bigfoot. There's been tons of sightings, and whether it's just some guy out in BC who's wearing a mask and trying to get a Netflix special, he never said he wanted to come on the show too. That was kind of unfortunate. That was a long time ago. Uh, or you've got your chupacabra, you've got your alien visitations. But it's on the big plains that you see potentially mammoths. That is one of your most recent books. Uh,
Yeah.
it's very Game of Thrones esque in its cover, kind of. What was the story behind that subject in particular? And did you watch the Joe Rogan episode on the Alaskan boneyards?
I did not watch the Joe Rogan episode. I really, I really don't follow any podcasts real close. I mean, I tune into this one obviously, but
Thank you.
it's hard for me to really, really follow along. So I didn't see that, but the point of this book, my contention is that mammoths and mastodons. I'm not saying there's any alive today. I'm saying there could be a herd in the Siberian taiga, or however the hell you say it, and I'm not the only one that said that. The father of cryptozoology, Bernard Hwevelmans, in his book, searching for what is it, on the track of unknown animals, a book he released back in the 50s. He made a good point that in an area that large, it's a continuous forest, 2/3 the size of the United States, and nobody lives there. I mean, there's some native tribes there, but very one of the most sparsely populated places on Earth. He said that the amazing thing is that there are a few mammoth sightings there that a herd could easily avoid detection there. But I'm on the fence as far as that goes. But my contention is, and the reason that I wrote the book
Mm-hmm.
is I believe based on um a lot of mammoth motifs, petroglyphs, things like that, and a lot of the Native American tales. I think that there was at least a few mammoths and mastodons alive in North America up until a couple hundred years ago, I would say. And that's really what this book delves into. And the way that I got into this was is actually, it's kind of funny. It's I guess I was at about 19 years old, and I've always been a big fan of Louis L'Amour, his
Mhm.
Western novels, right? And I read Jubal Sackett, which is a little bit different. It goes back to I think it takes place around the 1620s. But anyway, Jubal. Long story short, the main character Jubal, he's got a kickapoo traveling companion that he's kind of like walking across the modern day U.S. with, and he tells Jubal of this creature, and to him, he's like, it's kind of like, holy shit, that sounds just like an elephant, but there's no elephants in North America, and his buddy's like, oh no, like I've seen it, and like in most of L'Amour's novels, like in the back, he would have like a note section because I mean they were, his novels were very accurate, historically, and he would have like all these notes to refer to, and sure enough, like I looked up some of the stuff that he had said, and there was a tale from the Ponca tribe that like in the 1500s, a hunting party out around Nebraska came across a dead mammoth, and the word that I can't remember like how you say the word or whatever, but the word that they used for mammoth was like the same word in their language that they use like for like circus elephants, that sort of thing. So it's like, okay, maybe there's a little something to this. And I'd read these tales of various Native American tribes of these stiff-legged bears, they call them, and the description, I mean, fits a mastodon. Um, some of the First Nations people talked about a great moose that had a fifth leg, that it could pick stuff up with, like a trunk, and
Are you
it's
sure it
like,
was they were talking about the trunk?
well, it might, yeah. Well, it's one or the other. So to keep it clean, we'll go with the
Just
we'll go with the
just want to
one.
clarify it. Now,
But the point being that there's a lot of things that just kind of make you think. And okay, it's one of those things, and it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier. This stuff has to be enjoyable for me. It has to be fun, right? I mean, if anybody picks up my book, it's called Modern Day Mammoths.
available on Amazon.com.
It's not
DenverMichaels.net.
if you're looking for a whole bunch of scientific proof, you're going to be disappointed. I mean, I can't prove a word of what I'm saying, but it's there's just all of these interesting tales that just really like make you think that some of these old stories, if people weren't so biased, right, that we know you know mammoths, mastodons went extinct at the end of the last ice age, we're so biased by what we think we know that we just kind of like just put these blinders on, and so any of these old stories, oh no, that's a bear, or oh no, that's some sort of parable with some sort of esoteric meaning, but it's really interesting to me. And I if you read Vine Deloria Jr.'s book, Red Earth, White Lies, some of you probably at least heard of his early works. Custer died for your sins. He was a Native American author, activist. But anyway, in the Red Earth, White Lies, he really gets into some of those stories, from a Native American perspective of how, when the as he puts it, like when the Pilgrims landed on North America, there were still, at least a few mammoths and mastodons. So
As I do
I
recall, there was actually a herd on one of the Californian um, islands offshore, and because like they had been there for so long, if you stick a species on on an island, it's eventually going to get smaller.
Yeah.
So like they had shrunk down. So you're talking smaller than a current, elephant, but they would, they still existed. And I think they were. I'm not even going to speculate on the date because I'm pulling back far into my memory as far as this
Yeah.
one. But like a couple hundred years ago, or at least about 1,000 years ago, maybe they were still around.
Well, I mean, I think the current time frames everybody says is like, the last of these things died. Like, I mean, maybe some stuff, with certain areas has been revised, but the best last I've heard is like 4,000 years ago, right? But I mean, like to me, I'll give you a quick example here. Like recently, I don't know if folks have heard of the Siberian unicorn. It was like this large, rhinoceros, and they thought that these things had went extinct. The time frame was 200,000 years ago, or thereabouts, and they recently revised their position that they went extinct 39,000 years ago. So they essentially lived alongside modern humans. The point of this is, that is a correction of what, 160,000 years. Okay, so I mean, is it really that crazy that I'm saying that, okay, you're saying that everything was wiped out at the end of the last ice age. I'm saying a few hundred years ago. I mean, that's only a correction of a few thousand years, not 160,000 years. And I just think that we just get so people just get so set in what we think we know. The science is settled, and yeah, I mean, like it's like I remember in some college class, geology classes in college, like a kid asked about dating rock layers and things, and he's like, well, couldn't like a flood create some of these land features or layers? No, that's religion. I'm only focused on science, and science, I'm not going to waste the classes. You just everything is settled according to these people, and
Scablands on the
I
West
just don't
Coast
buy
proved
it.
that wrong, but or at least look at that as a possibility because like those were dug out, at least potentially. Yeah, that's a Randall Carlson thing. Yeah, like we all know the Missoula, uh, uh, scablands. Those are massive features that were dug out by a large deluge of water. Apparently, some people say it was just erosion over a long period of time. It kind of looks like if you pour water, if you were a kid and you have water out of a bucket, and you pour it into the beach sand, and the beach sand's already wet, it's going to make a very clear path.
Yeah,
It's a very similar thing, but on a much larger scale. Obviously, we can't see it because if we were thousands of feet tall, it would probably look the same. Um, you know, it, the experts in a lot of fields are going to have a lot of expertise and data to be able to back up their findings. When it comes to archaeology, uh, and I'm not a scientist, but I know a fair amount of scientists. Fossilization for anybody out there, it has to happen under very specific conditions. So the fossils we
yes,
find are a very small fraction of what actually survived. So we don't even have the fossil record we have isn't even the full picture. We're
no,
making suppositions based on a small data set, and can it be accurate? In some ways, yes. There may be things that were missing, even from 30,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. Heck, even like it's like I could break wind and it will smell different one day versus the other, even if I eat the exact same thing every single day. So you can't even go with sometimes the data that you have from the day before. So if you're talking 10,000 years, it's very difficult, and I can understand that perspective 100%. So at least from a
yeah,
questioning standpoint, but I'm that pain in the ass guy who always will ask more questions, either because I want to know or because I just want to be annoying and I think it's funny. Most of the time, it's because I want to know. And like, if whether it's for my own well-being, of peace of mind, or just the fact that it's like, okay, well, at least it's something new that I learned today and I can add it to that piece of the puzzle. Sometimes you just gotta know for knowing. Some people will say, oh, history, we if we learn history, we can learn from the past. Yes, that is very important. Sometimes you just gots to know, and there's nothing more to it. It is our endless curiosity as humans, and it's one of the reasons. One of the reasons I brought this show back, because I'm like, it's fun to know whether it's other people's perspectives or not. And if one of the things I gotta know is whether you know the difference between a mastodon and a mammoth, because most people don't. I would think that it comes down to size and tusk structure and head structure, but it's probably a lot more complicated than that. So, can you illuminate me?
I mean, they're pretty similar. Like a mastodon is, like they're kind of shorter, like stockier. They're like cousins. The mammoths. They got the big curving tusk, kind of like the way that their back looks. It's almost kind of like the
Or
maybe like the difference between a grizzly bear. Yeah,
Ray
it's got
Romano's
like that
character from Ice Age
kind of.
1, was that a mammoth or a mastodon?
Do what now?
Have you ever watched Ice Age, the first one? Ray Romano,
That was a
Dennis Leary.
mammoth.
Okay.
So the mastodon, their back is like kind of flatter looking. They're a little more kind of stocky. I mean, they got really big too, but the mammoths were, and the mammoths lived more like on the steppes and like on more grasslands. I think the mastodons were in like more the wooded environments, but they commingled. I mean, they found a lot of their bones intermingled in some of the same places.
So it's like, dogs at a dog park, they're just going to hang out even if you got a golden retriever or you got like a Great
Yeah, I mean
Dane, a little
you
schnauzer.
know
Oh,
yeah, they're very similar.
I had to ask because my 5-year-old has been watching Ice Age 1. She won't watch the other ones because, heaven forbid, the acting gets worse and the story gets more convoluted. The original is always going to be better, like Star Wars. Um, so she, like that was her question, and she's asleep right now because kids up after 8:30 is never a good thing. Uh,
No.
so honey, it's mastodons, flat back, shorter. Mammoths, that's from Ice Age. So there you know. Uh, Getting into giants, because this is my favorite subject of all
Yeah, that's a cool subject.
time. Men of Renown is what I would consider to be your opus. It is a 650, 700 page tome of a collection of giant myths from across the world. And I got to say, how was it getting that book finished? And what are kind of some of the common misconceptions that you found other people had about prehistoric creatures, including giants, whether it be myth or compared to, you know, just a standard really tall guy?
Well, I think you, you know what are some misconceptions about giants? I mean, that's kind of like asking, what are some misconceptions about aliens, right? Because I can't prove that they exist. So if we just kind of like start from there. But I would say like one of the biggest things that I come across with with these giant stories, a lot of people in the Bigfoot community, think that these ancient giant stories or the giant bones that have been found, point to Bigfoot. and they really kind of champion a lot of that as Bigfoot evidence. And I am not in that camp. I believe that giants, they are, just big people. And what I mean by that, I don't mean like, oh yeah, well, like somebody 7 feet tall would be a giant compared to you. Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, some of these people, were 10, 12 feet tall. And I think your 7 footers, their genes just got diluted down over time. And I think these giants, they were humans, or a notch above us, in their genes and their makeup. So, yeah, one of the things I don't really argue with people or debate them, but that is one thing that I see. Like a lot of your Bigfoot community will take some of these giant skeletal finds, or some of these stories, and kind of crowbar that into the Bigfoot evidence.
Would that make like that particular segment of the Bigfoot community the third segment? Because you have your giant bipedal ape people who are more of the rationalists, I like to call them. Then you have your psychic, potential weekend lover, alien, red eyed, can walk through walls Bigfoot. And now you have your potentially giant Bigfoot. Between those three, just before we can go on, which one do you think is the most likely?
This is something that I oscillate back and forth on. I mean, if years ago, you couldn't have told me Bigfoot was anything other, than a bipedal ape that we just not discovered. But as more time goes on, and when you talk to people that that see the glowing red eyes with them, and no matter, no matter what any way you look at that, I mean, a great ape, they've got eyes like us. They're not going to have red eye shine, from artificial light hitting their eyes, and they sure as hell aren't going to have, bioluminescent red eyes. I mean, that's just not gonna, it's just not gonna be a thing. But I mean, that is so common in reports. And I mean, there's just so many reports where there's some element of high strangeness with it. And often, like from very credible witnesses and stuff. We haven't, as many people as out there looking for these things. I mean, there's still there's no smoking gun. I mean, there's some interesting tracks, some very interesting casts of tracks, but that's all they are, right? There's, okay, you've got a track, but you've not got a body. You've got some inconclusive hair samples, some things like that. And the evidence would kind of point that like there's just not the evidence that you would expect. So in that regard, what are you left with? I mean, I just don't think that all of these people are that they're making it up, or they're crazy. So from that angle, I entertain the possibility that perhaps Bigfoot is some sort of metaphysical type creature. Now, I'm not one of these people that go out in the woods and sit in a circle naked and like try to communicate with it. I'm not.
Are you
I'm
sure?
not.
We
I
got
don't. I don't
pictures.
believe in that
We got
shit.
pictures, people.
I don't believe in that shit either. And it's I don't know what can I tell you, but I mean, if you look at some of like, so maybe one of the things I brought up in the book, right, is if you read like the book of Enoch and some of these other, the Bible, some of these other scriptures, And like these giants in the Bible, Book of Enoch, like when they died. And this is all getting into some kooky esoteric stuff, I guess. But like you know, what would have happened like to their spirits or souls? And again, this is if you even believe in this sort of thing, which a lot of people don't. I mean, a lot of people think, when we die, we're just worm food and that's it. But just for argument's sake, assuming we all have souls, whatever a soul is, so a creature, in the Bible it says that that these giants were created through the union of angels and human women. So, like when these giants were killed, either in the flood or like later in the Bible, you know, Joseph and Caleb exterminated a bunch of them. What would have happened to their souls? And I entertain the idea that maybe like those souls are floating around out here and, could manifest as a Bigfoot or you know, a Mothman or, what I don't know why they would do that, but it's
Well, why? Well, especially in Chicago, like if you want to get mistaken for a flasher by people who are high on goodness knows what, Chicago's a good place to do it. You know, it's like it's a
yeah.
Mothman. I'm like, are you sure?
Are you
What
sure?
area of
Yeah.
town are you in? What time of night was it?
And
Like,
I should let everybody. I mean, this certainly isn't like an idea that I'm tied to. It's just it's just one of those things that you kind of kick around a little bit because there's all kinds of people that believe in like or old religions and things that believe in like earth spirits and water spirits and this or that. And I don't know. I just think that maybe Bigfoot could some way be tied to something like that. I'm not,
but is it
you know.
possible that the ones that at least are inconclusive, and I don't know how many there are out there, if there are any that are inconclusive as far as bones of that size, and they're not dinosaurs, they're not, from a mammoth or some other large, extinct or supposedly extinct animal from North America, is it possible that those bones may have been from old Bigfoot and mistaken for giants?
Well, and that's kind of what I was getting at with a lot of the people in the Bigfoot community. That's that they will really draw on and be like, hey, there's this old newspaper report of a 8.5 foot skeleton. Could this have been a Bigfoot? But I don't think so personally because you know if Bigfoot does exist as something that is is physical and has bones in a body, then I think it's that it's some sort of great ape. So I don't think that a Bigfoot is going to be buried in a 65 foot tall mound inside a vault with a copper crown on its head and copper breastplates, like you find with a lot of these other giant skeletons. So,
Well, how do you know? Did you know what the fashion was like in 20,003 years ago? Like maybe it was progressive to wear a gold crown. Maybe he just identified as a mound.
well,
It's
I mean, maybe
you know,
Bigfoot was a renowned coppersmith. Maybe I
it's a
mean, who knows?
possibility. Like we do, as you said yourself, we don't know,
We
and
don't know,
and it's
and we don't have nobody to ask. So, I mean,
no,
there
but
you
it's
go.
real fun to speculate.
and
With
it's supposed to be fun.
so like for giant mythos, like you've got North America, it's been done to death. Like I'm not gonna go too much into it just because like
Yeah,
I know we've covered it. You can find it. It's been hit over the head with. It's either
yeah,
like, hey, were these people from Atlantis? We don't know. Were these people just like here already? Are they cannibals? We don't know. Lovelock
yeah.
Cave, etc., etc., etc. The same things are run over a million times to death. some of the ancient stories out of Europe, though, like, oh man, okay, one of my favorite. You got to tell this one. Ireland, Scotland, Wales, like the UK. Give me the UK, like the big UK founding myth with regards to this, because I've heard it before. Hearing it from your voice with that accent, that's gonna make that's money.
Well, I mean, I'm certainly not an expert as far as this goes, but one of the myths is, a Roman emperor had a like a real evil daughter, right? And I think she had like 33 sisters, and they all, like made a pact and killed their husbands, right? So they were exiled, and they settled in Britain, and at any rate, it's real close to the Bible story. How, like in the Bible, it says that the sons of God and the daughters of men, procreated and giants were born. Kind of in the same way that, these evil daughters, they procreated with demons. And, there was a race of giants born, in ancient Britain. And that is a very, you've got a almost a similar tale, like from India. You've got that theme, where like a demons or angels or this or that procreate with humans. The resulting offspring is these giant creatures, and almost always, the giants are evil. They create hardship for people, wherever they go, and it's worldwide, those stories.
What about some of the stories coming out? Like, were there any stories coming out of Polynesia? I know you had mentioned India, but like the
Yeah,
southeastern Asia and Oceania.
yeah, there's, I mean, there's some real interesting stories, from the South Pacific. In some of these cases, the giant tails, they're really far fetched, like giants that, like stand in the ocean, and, their arms stretch up into the clouds. But then there's also there's a lot of stories from New Zealand, fairly recent times, of giants, that, their graves were, 14 feet long. They talk about these giant chiefs that, that were in charge, like 9 feet tall, 10 feet tall. um there's a book, God, I can't remember the name of it, but the guy that wrote it, James Cowan, he talks about, a giant Kiaroa, that does battle, with another giant chief. And it's just really astounding, when you think about those tales. And and also, like in, I forget where this is. It's either in, maybe the Marshall Islands. Try anyway, whatever. One of those, you know, island chains in the South Pacific. There's this tale where these giants wash ashore like in a hollowed out timber. And like as soon as they wash up on shore, the people, like kill them. An interesting thing also, like from Peru and Ecuador, there's these tales of these giants that, by boat, come in, and, the people didn't kill them. The giants washed up on shore on boats, and then they settled and subjugated everybody. But I just find it interesting that, worlds apart, there's these tales of these giant people, coming up on boats. And, the easy way out would be to, oh, that's just Vikings. Well, I mean, yeah, maybe I don't really know that the Polynesian dudes are pretty big. I don't know that, that the Vikings were any bigger than Polynesian guys. And even if they were, I mean, they weren't 10 feet tall.
It, we're what was the average like height? Are we talking? You said 7 to like 15. I've seen estimations some as high as 25
It
or 30, and
it just depends on the story. It really does. It just depends on the story. Like in Patagonia early on, you're talking, 15, 1600s, the tales, the people being,
Mhm.
giant people being, between 10 and 12 feet tall. As you get further down closer to our day, it's more, 7, 7.5. So it really kind of just depends on the particular tale and, where it's from and who told it.
What was the motivation behind writing the book? Like, obviously, you're not necessarily trying to solve the mystery because, as we said, we've got no one to really ask and we can speculate. I think one of the conversations we had basically came to the determination it's like three things, three possibilities. It's
Yeah.
either BS, giant humans with like really good genes, or freaking aliens.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I think my motivation for writing it was, this is one of those things like, so I've always written about a lot of different things. I mean, I've never wanted to be like the Bigfoot guy or the ghost hunter or the lake monster guy. I have a wide range of interests, and in a lot of ways, a lot of these things are interconnected. I mean, you find that over and over, and with giants, I mean, what you find with giants, I mean, that like they kind of touch on everything. I mean, like we were talking earlier, how the Bigfoot community champions a lot of these old newspaper reports of giant skeletal finds. Um, Zechariah Sitchin, Eric von Daniken wrote about the Nephilim in the book of Genesis, and speculated that like if you substitute the word alien for angel, well, there you have it, and there's just all this, and even coming from a, Pentecostal background as a youth, it's not something that's real, the real in-depth stuff with giants. I mean, it's not just something you get in your basic Sunday school class. It's sort of inside baseball stuff, right? But if you do dive into it, like a lot of those folks, believe that the spirits of these deceased giants are behind a lot of bad shit. Whether kind of like I was talking about earlier, they're just sort of like the spirits of the giants are sort of like demons floating around. So what I'm getting at is giants just, it just sort of like ties like everything together, no matter what kind of weird, or even if you're just like, even if you don't really care that much about Bigfoot or whatever Von Daniken wrote about. I mean, if you're just a guy that is just kind of into conspiracy stuff, well, there you go. Because it don't take much digging to figure out that the Smithsonian might have hidden or destroyed a bunch of giant bones. So no matter what kind of weird angle you're coming from, you're going to run into giants sooner or later. So that all just really fascinated me. And I mean, the fascination goes back to being a kid in Sunday school, and asking my Sunday school teacher, like how much a cubit was, because I was, we were doing the David and Goliath story, and I'm trying to calculate in my head like how tall he was. And and my Sunday school teacher, well, I don't really know, but I've heard preachers say that Goliath was around 10 feet tall. So I'm just kind of thinking about that, and I thought about the height of the basketball rim out in the parking lot, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. And it just really fascinated me when I was a kid.
you never were able to dunk, I'm guessing.
Nope, never.
Wasn't.
And you know what? I was with the several years ago, me and the kids, one of my nephews had a, birthday party at one of those trampoline, one of those, I don't know, I don't even know the name of it, but it was some place. It's just like just like this huge gym. It's just all trampolines, and they had some basketball hoops, you know. So like, oh man, I am gonna windmill dunk. And I bounced as hard as I could on the trampoline, and I hit the rim with the ball a couple times, but it never went in. I never could dunk, even on a trampoline.
At least you tried, because
I tried like hell, man. I mean, I freaking tried so hard, but I could not dunk it, even on a trampoline. It was sad. It was so sad.
I can't jump at all. So even with a trampoline, you still got me on that.
I
Um,
just had it in my mind, man. I was just going to do the, I was going to do a windmill dunk. I mean, just like, and you know, like a backboard breaking kind of dunk, and it didn't happen.
it's I could just
Couldn't even
imagine
get
it.
the
It's
ball.
like, was this like a kid's birthday? It's friend of the family, a niece or
Yeah,
nephew.
it was one of my nephews. So you know they were doing. It's like the whole family was there, so we just kind of split off. And I think me and my son, I was tossing the ball to him. He was doing some alley oop dunks, you know, but I couldn't do it, man. Just I tried so hard I couldn't dunk it.
I'm going to make the assumption, and I know if you assume, you can make an ass out of you and me. Uh,
Yeah.
Given your disposition as an individual, were you the only parent on the trampolines?
Let's see. No, you know, my wife jumped around. Heck, even my stepdad, he was bouncing
There you
around
go.
some too. So there were I wasn't the only one.
Okay, because I always look at it
Yeah.
like fun stuff like that. I always got to try. I take my
Yeah.
we
No,
had
dude, there was like as many adults as kids because you know that's
okay.
one of those things that you can, you know, like you can kind of let that kid in you go. Because I mean, there growing up, man, if you had a buddy that had a trampoline, man, there was nothing more fun than that. And back in those days, man, you didn't have those stupid guards on the side. I mean, you could bounce as high as you could and land in the yard. And I mean, it was a lot of fun, but I could not dunk.
Yeah, since those safety measures have been put in
Yeah,
place,
it
people
ruins
call them fun
everything.
killers, but uh, injuries among kids have gone down,
Yeah.
which that's time and stress and hospital. But there's nothing like you jumping 10 feet in the air and then landing on your arm, and you're like, oh, it's back funny the wrong way. And you have to, it's like
Yeah.
it's like don't tell mom, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine.
Yeah, it's all right. Just shut up.
Oh man, I'm too many memories. It's as long as you're not in company or in a family or like a parent group where you're the only one having fun and everyone else is just like sitting there
No,
going like, oh god, it's
yeah,
Denver again. Like,
yeah, nothing like that. You know, I mean, I'm not going to be the creepy dude on the trampoline. It's just me and like, you know, 30 kids, like, you know, looking like the dude that's, hey, you want to come and see my puppy? You know, I'm not going to be that guy, you know. So if other adults are out there, I'll get out there too, but I'm not going to be the first one, you know.
I, it takes a brave man to. That's why you have to at least pick your own spot, your own trampoline. And if other
Yeah.
kids come onto that, you do the bounce where they just go, and there's no
Bouncing.
problem. Of course, then you're looking like you're the guy who throws other kids around. It's like, which
Yeah.
is worse?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like, oh, it's like, man, he's got a concussion. It's like, well, it could have been worse, you know.
It could have been a lot worse.
you know,
Oh, boy.
like besides religion and especially dealing with Pentecostal denominations, and Catholicism is its own thing, and then you've got your
Yeah.
Baptists and what have you. Like, what's the main cultural significance that you've seen that has come out of the giant mythos? Not so much in popular culture, but in terms of just just in terms of like I'm going to say at least an understanding of the past, or trying to understand the past, or at least looking at it as myth versus a possibility or a potential. Um, like scientists, they're going to say it's never happened. It was a
Yeah.
hoax, or somebody found some bone. And you got your far out there individuals whom will claim it's space aliens from Persei 8, and they're it's they're from the year 3000 our time. Like they're the possibilities are endless in as ways people want to be able to take it. Like,
Yeah.
have you seen it as a much larger effect now compared to then? Um, and like, how have you seen it change since the book has come out?
Well, I haven't really noticed any sort of change since, since the book came out. You know, I mean, and it's not like I wrote Chariots of the Gods here and sold millions of copies or anything. It's just, the book came out with a whimper, and it is what it is. But as far as, I would say, the big cultural change really goes back, though, I would say, like, way before I was even born, right? And one thing I point to, like, with all of these giant bones, and it wouldn't take anything for any of you listening out there. I mean, sit yourself, go on, what is it, that Library of Congress.gov, where you can do their newspaper searches, or on Google Archive, or newspapers.com, like any of those old places that have these archive newspapers. I mean, you just find dozens and dozens and dozens of these old discoveries of giant bones, and what you see is, in most instances, I mean, they're written about very matter of factly. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times it's just not really a big deal. You'll just see, like, just a little blurb, right? Like road workers in Sullivan County, Virginia, unearthed 36-inch thigh bone. And that's like it. It's just, everything is like very matter of fact. And I think the reason for that is, back in those days, the in the US, at least, I mean, it used to be very much that people, believed in a literal interpretation of the Bible. That's the exception to the rule nowadays, right? But it was just kind of, like, yeah. And in a lot of the papers, it'll be, there were giants on the earth in those days, like right out of Genesis 6:4, because people believed, they were more Bible believing in those days. And it's just kind of like, well, yeah, of course there were giants back then. The Bible says so. Now, of course, a lot of that stuff is looking at as just myth. And so I think that's probably the biggest cultural shift as far as giants go. And even in a lot of what you would call evangelical, or what you'd say Bible believing churches, I mean, a lot of them don't really even, that's sort of like the what I want to say, like the tales of giants, things like that. That's almost sort of like the crazy uncle over at Thanksgiving, right? Like, nobody really wants to, wants to talk to him, because it's kind of, I guess, kind of hard to explain that to to a kid in high school
I thought
in
you were going to say Canadian. I'm like, we have
2023,
Thanksgiving too. It's a month earlier, but we have it. You know, um, it, I get that. Uh, have you noticed? And like, I've kind of being out of the game a little bit, but kind of like, you get your toe dipped into it every now and again. Things crawl up on your Facebook feed, and you see what people have in mind and what's being talked about. And
Mhm.
I've noticed, and I'm not sure if it's just because I haven't really been on Facebook a lot, or they've changed like social media channels that they're talking on. The more sensationalized position
Mhm.
on giants or the giant mythos, so like, those that range of stories that have been talked about in Ancient Aliens and all the various other
Yeah.
shows.
That's all you see, right?
No, it's died. That's what died down. It's non-existent. Everything
Oh.
everything I have seen has, and pretty much any field, has
Mhm.
gone straight into the conspiratorial mind. It's like, the subject, and then they'll tie it into some type of conspiracy theory of
Hmm.
government or whatever, and then they'll move on
Yeah.
to something else. And like I'm not sure if it's just based on the algorithm, but like I haven't really seen it that much. Where back in the day, of course, the show was happening like 2 times a week plus however many specials.
Hmm.
It was a lot more prevalent then, and even from any of the I'm gonna say online publications. It's different now, and I don't know if that is the curated internet that's being shown based on search history or based on
Yeah.
like oh, you're searching a lot for how to smoke back bacon in your barbecue kind of thing. So like here's all the talk about that or anything that could potentially be related to it versus oh, here's some cool stuff that is we found. Uh, like from your side, like whether it's giants, whether it's cryptozoology, has like is there one segment over the other that has really I'm going to stayed the same or consistent with in terms of its tone and reporting, or have you noticed more of a shift in one area to another?
No, I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense what you're saying. As far as like the giant stuff that comes across my feed, I mean, most of what I see nowadays is really more like the kind of like the more outlandish stuff, like for every good or maybe plausible type deal, you'll see something like about the giant of Kandahar, where supposedly the special forces unit went into a cave in Afghanistan and killed this 15-foot tall giant, and the government's covered it up and blah blah blah
And
blah
they
blah.
found, yeah,
The kind of stuff like that.
was it News of the
For
World? That was the old website back in the day.
Well, this, actually, the first time I heard that story, I was, driving into work in the middle of the night, and it was on Coast
Coast
to
to
Coast.
coast.
Was the first time I heard it, and I don't, I I it's one of those things that I'm not a real big believer in, but I for every. I really don't see a whole lot as far as giants go. Stuff come across my feed as I used to, and unless it's something like real outlandish like that, I see that. And I don't know. I mean, I think some of that outlandish stuff just gets more clicks, and you know how it is. It's like with as far as clicks go, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. It just kind of my Facebook reach has God, I've got more followers on my page now, but I had way more interactions in 2016, 2017 than I do now.
Well,
Like, I
and
mean,
yeah, unless you're doing live, like your reach is
for
nothing.
real, I mean, and on Twitter too. My my reach is just plummeted, and I I don't know. I guess it's just those kooky algorithms and whatever, but who knows?
You need to pay that $13.99 for that blue
I'm
check
not,
mark.
and that's the things like, I was telling that to my wife. It's like, I think I thought it was so funny when, I do think it's funny. I think it's hilarious watching all the blue check mark crowd, the way that they cried, about their blue check marks. That was hilarious, and that's cool. But on the other hand, I think what's going on Twitter is, everybody else, is like your reach is being throttled, to try to encourage you to, subscribe to Twitter Blue. And I am not paying for Twitter. I mean, you can put a freaking gun to my head. I will not ever pay for Twitter. I will never pay for Facebook. I'm just not doing it, and you can throttle my reach all you want, but I'm just not doing it. It's not going to
Well,
happen.
like I gotta say, like in my um, like in my field, like I've paid for. I'm gonna admit it. I've paid for LinkedIn Gold or LinkedIn Premium because I don't even know why.
Yeah, but that's
It's
different than Twitter, though.
well, no, because you don't really need it. Like I could full on. I have enough like I have enough followers that I qualify for the I could live stream on LinkedIn, which is like this big like, oh my goodness, you can live stream. Like, yeah, I can live stream of a couple groups, and that's that's great. But like for them it's a business. But like if you notice, for any of these groups, they always have their bank accounts in Ireland because they don't pay any
Yeah.
taxes. So I'm just sitting there going like, $98. Like, I thought I got the discount. You said I got the discount. Now it's like it's only for 1 month. Like, well, just forget that noise. Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm done. Um, and like that's the weird thing about social media, because like it's so different now even to then. Where
Yes.
like the app changes randomly. I think on my Facebook app, I think at one point there was a small, like a day or two, where they were testing out the chat being integrated back into the app instead of having a separate messenger. And I'm like, oh my god, it's back! Like, I haven't seen this since I sideloaded Facebook onto my BlackBerry 10. Like, I was hoping they'd bring this back, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, it went away. Like, okay, it's back to Messenger. It's fine. Like, I don't, whether it's maybe it's something that also will go extinct. Maybe it's going to be around for a long time. Um, and I'm William. I am going to get your question. So you did ask it a while ago. Like, yeah, it was kind of early. What about non-water terrestrial dinosaurs? Because that is
Hmm.
because we got about 20 minutes left. So I want to make sure we
Yeah.
can cover
Yeah.
this.
I'm
This
I'm
is a
I'm a big believer in the possibility of that. I mean, if you look at
because you have a
Makile and
yeah,
Bembe in Africa, you
yeah.
look at some of your South American reports. It just it certainly seems plausible to me. I had talked about in some of my books, like when
Oh, you have a new one coming out in
yeah,
this
yeah, I've
summer, I
actually got
believe.
one. Yeah, I've actually got one coming out. It's actually called Living Dinosaurs, and I get into this quite a bit more. And I'm not saying that, if you go out in the Amazon, it's like Jurassic Park and there's T Rexes going to eat you and all that stuff. I'm just saying that there could be a few, stragglers, out there based on, well, based on, some of the strange reports you get. And also, like we were talking earlier, I'm not sure. I'm not sure our extinction timelines are quite correct. I mean, I don't think that dinosaurs necessarily had to have gone extinct 65 million years ago. If I subscribe to a catastrophist point of view.
He's a
I think these,
catastrophist, ladies and
cata,
gentlemen.
yeah, however you say it, these, cataclysms, pole shifts, you know, comet impacts. I think that these things reset the clock on, and some of our dating is probably not correct. And so if you're able to kind of look at things through that lens, you don't have this 65 million years hurdle to overcome. And moreover, you know, I'm not a scientist, right? But I do know that we have never found a complete dinosaur skeleton. Stegosauruses. I think they've only found like 80 samples of those, half of that for T Rexes. So I just don't think, in the first place, we even know as much about dinosaurs as we think we do, because everything is just based on fossils, and a lot of times I think some of those dates might even be faulty. So I think it is entirely possible that there's some small populations of dinosaurs in Africa, South America, probably places like Papua New Guinea, some of those real impenetrable places. I mean,
Most people
I
think,
visited the
yeah,
a preserve in the Amazon back in 2016, and I mean, it was a damn 4-hour boat ride. I mean, there's there's a 4 hour boat ride. It's just crazy how isolated and everything it is. And I decided then and there, I'm not gonna rule out the possibility of anything when you're in a place that's that remote. I mean, anything could be there. I mean, we just don't know as much as we think we do about, our planet, about our past. That's just my take on it.
We as a society have our heads in our phones a lot. We don't. We've stopped looking up at the sky. We're looking more at the ground when we're looking at our phones. We don't pay attention to the world like we used to. We're so busy. We don't. We just don't have the capacity. Advertising is and messaging is and branding is being bombarding us on a constant basis, which is making it more difficult to you know cut through the noise to be able to see the forest for the trees in the forest. We'll use that metaphor. I would say that yeah, 100%. We don't know everything. We don't know everything about our past. We don't know everything about right now. Uh, you can't necessarily even compare things like wolf is you like you mentioned wolves are being reintroduced into the Californian population, or at least in the American West, and they've tracked the migration down from Washington, Oregon, all the way down into to the middle of California. But you're talking about animals that hunt other animals for food. Those animals that are food, they migrate, and most of the time you don't even know that they're there. Like we have an extent, like even here in Western Ottawa, which it's to give everyone an idea, it's about an hour and a half drive at 70 miles southwest of Montreal, which is about 4 or 5 hours due south of New York City. So you can do that triangulation. And our city's huge. Like it's predominantly a hybrid urban and suburban and rural area. Uh, and the coyote population is massive. It's
Mm-hmm.
massive. And in our area, it's a very, very old neighborhood, um, fairly dense as far as neighborhood. Like this would be like not crammed together like they are being built now, but this was a pretty high density neighborhood way back in when it was built in the late 70s, early 80s. And the way that it's laid out, we can still see coyotes in the area. Depending on the time of year, you may not see them, like just because they're so used to avoiding humans. They're so used to trying not being seen because either hunting the pets or they're trying to make sure that they're not going to get, you know, not get in danger from the humans around them. And like we're talking, running through playgrounds, through schoolyards. They're in family neighborhoods with young kids, and this is their natural habitat. We've just encroached in on it. Uh, but like a lot of the times we don't see tracks. If you're not a tracker, you don't know what they are. They're not leaving a lot of fur. The only way that we know that they're there is because there's so many of them, because there's
Yeah.
so many of us, and they're moving around on a constant basis. If you're talking about tracts of land in California or the Midwest, the United States is the third or fourth. Like it's Russia, Canada, China, and then the United States, and then Australia. Those are like the top big five singular countries, and that's a massive landmass. How long does it take you to drive from one end of the U.S. to another? And in that time, what is the longest point where you don't actually see anything or another car or another store, a gas station? You're talking like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles where you're only through that section for 10, 20 minutes. You may be one of only one person every couple of hours who makes that trip. How is it you can make the determination that there is something there that you don't know? There are species that we are still finding. There are species that we thought that are extinct that we are still finding. So yeah, like if you take a continent the size of Africa, which we don't even know and can't conceive how big it is because our entire frame of reference is built around the Mercator projection, which makes it look smaller than Greenland. like I'm sorry, like Africa big.
Huge. It's huge. Yeah.
It's like they're like what are some of the reports of dinosaurs coming out of Africa, especially around like Congo? Because I've heard there's some crazy stories out there.
Yeah. Well, in the Congo, there's supposedly a sauropod dinosaur. It's got a name, Mokile and Bembe is what they call it. I mean, well, I guess it's got variant names too, but I mean, there's been reports of that. I mean, since the earliest days of French missionaries in the area spoke of these enormous reptilian tracks, and those stories even to this day of people spotting like a small dinosaur. There's also been reports that sound a lot like what you think of a stegosaur there, where they say that there's this large reptile like creature with planks growing out of its back. There's other reports that sound a lot like a triceratops, from there. I mean, who knows? Maybe those could just be some kind of rhinoceros or something we don't know about. But if there's a species of rhinoceros that we don't know about, I mean, that's pretty cool too, right? I mean, that's no less incredible. Is my point. And there's a lot of those type of stories in South America, and back in the old days, like when the rubber trade was going on, and people were pushing way into the interior. There were these tales coming out of just sound. I mean, they just fit the description of like small dinosaurs, and by small dinosaurs I'm talking 18-20 feet long. Not quite what you'd see on the Jurassic Park movies, but bigger than a reptile you would think you would be seeing.
I'm up here. The largest bird, we're starting to get like even up here in Ottawa, we're starting to get a lot of bald eagle
Yeah.
nesting, which is great and they're majestic. And you're up at the cottage and you see like this bald eagle. It's just sitting up there, and you see this other small bird just dive bombing it, constantly trying to get it away from its nest.
Yeah.
Kids are in the water. You're like, grab the kids, make sure they're safe. And I know and if you don't get a picture of it, most people will be like, oh, like bald
Oh
eagle, it's
yeah,
extinct,
right,
and like,
sure.
oh yeah, they're not there. Like, no, well now there's a
It
lot
was
of them.
just a hawk. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
like no, I know what a hawk looks like. I know what a turkey vulture looks like. It's a
Yeah.
hawk flies straight. Turkey vulture looks a little bit uneven. If it's doing this, it's probably a turkey
Yeah.
vulture. Uh, like in Africa, I know that there are reports of like winged dinosaur, like huge. Either it's a giant bird or some type of prehistoric, because like the reports coming out of there
Yeah.
are we're talking it's like I think the 1800s 1850s when they first started pushing into the interior. Like the reports are coming out that they were having sightings of these massive like massive leathered winged
Yeah.
creatures.
Yeah, I mean, for lack of a better description, I mean, it sounds like what you'd think of with pterosaurs, coming out of Africa. A lot of your real good reports. I mean, a lot of them come out of like Papua New Guinea. I mean, tons of them down there. And you just think of like these places, like how remote they are. And I mean, I just can't think of a good reason why something like that couldn't exist. I mean, and I think the main reason that people are so hesitant is just that, you know, we know dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago, da 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 da. And it's just we're just so conditioned to just outright reject anything that's contrary to what we've had pounded into our heads since I mean gosh I mean since we were little kids really. And I just think that's why people reject it. I mean I think there's really a lot of credible reports. I mean evidence wise, I mean, like, I
Like,
mean,
le-
if there's just a small number of these things, I mean, it's really the proverbial needle in the haystack. I mean, they're if you could prove they exist, right? I mean, they're probably critically endangered, so there's couldn't be many of them, and it's really would be tough to prove scientifically good enough,
show me the
to
body
meet
kind
all
of
the
thing, you know?
criteria. It's almost impossible, and especially since everybody looking for these. I mean, you're doing it on your own dime. It's not like you can just go to the grant store and get some money to to just spend years looking for these things.
Well, I got if you got a store for that, I got some beans to sell you, and then we can go find some giants. Um, when
And and I'm not saying, like, if if you're the colleges, or the government, I mean, I get it. You're going to hand out the money to to other stuff. I totally get it. I'm not criticizing a lack of interest or a lack of funding. I mean, but the point being, it's just it would a remarkable challenge to try to even get enough evidence to drum up enough interest, like, to get some funding. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense.
I remember there was one show, I forget exactly what year it was. There was a production company that was going around to various like personalities, and somehow they decided to approach me and said, "Hey, we're shooting this show that's kind of
Mm.
like the Dragon's Den, but with paranormal style
Yeah.
situations." So like people who like, oh, I'm gonna dig up this Ochre
Mm.
Island, not Oak Island, and this
Yeah.
is my plan, and then it's either say I'm out or I'm in, or you try and fund it, what have you, and I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. So I told them what I was about. I'm like, it's more we like the mysteries, but we try and look at it from the logical side of things and
Yeah.
explain the philosophy. He's like, yeah, I don't. This isn't gonna work, man. you
Yeah.
know,
One of those, gosh,
like oh,
like two
like
or three
it's like
TV
damn.
people have contacted me over the years. And like the last one, I just kind of got sick of it. I'm like, look, I'm not interested in doing a show like where I go out in the woods in the middle of the night and what was that? Did you hear that? I am just not interested in that stupid bullshit. There's enough of that. The market's flooded with that stuff. It's stupid. It's not interesting, and I'm just not interested in it. And then they kind of left me alone after that.
I would have killed to have seen that actually. It's like, what was that? It's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it's just a
Oh,
bag of chips.
did you hear? Yeah, I'm just, I mean, like for one, I mean, I think a lot of these shows that film their stuff at night, I mean,
No, it's
it's just for
it's reality
effect. I
t-
mean,
it's
I think
reality
all your
TV.
Bigfoot shows, I think the reason that they started doing it was because of the all of the ghost hunting shows that kind of preceded those,
It's
like
ghost
from the
hunting, not
early
finding.
2000s.
Keep
There
that in
was
mind.
the ghost hunting shows. They would do their investigations at night, and you don't really need to do ghost investigations at night. I mean, it works in the daytime too. But as far as Bigfoot goes, I mean, a lot of people think it's nocturnal, but I mean, even if it does mostly move at night, I mean, like, once you shine your flashlight, you can forget about finding anything. I mean, and you got all this camera equipment, people stumbling around in the woods where you're making all this noise. I mean, to me, the best way is to just kind of slip in the daytime where you can see. But that doesn't make for just kind of walking around in the woods and looking for signs. That doesn't really make for good television, though.
Well, and I find books tend to provide a much better way to pass the time, and it's better for the brain. It's
Yeah.
we got to read more books, or at least if you're not going to read more books, read more PDFs on your phone of books, or EPUBs, or more of
More audio
Denver's,
books
or
even.
audiobooks. And just before, because we got about a minute left. Uh, where can people find your work? Because I know that you're on Audible, you're on Amazon. You can order directly through your website.
Best thing I just tell people, go to Amazon. Anything I do, you can find on Amazon, and that's probably the easiest way. You can learn about any of my books either on my Amazon page, website denvermichaels.net. I got all my books listed there. I write a blog or sometimes two a week, so there's some reading material for you there other than my books, and you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and I have a YouTube channel, so you can check me out there too.
The videos are quite good, I gotta say. So go check those out, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know when this will be going up in audio. I'm probably for this series of or this new series, what do we call this, like season 2, the next generation, Neo Den of Lore, uh, Den of Lore 2 Electric Boogaloo. Help me out here. Send me your
I like
names to info@denoflore.com or Klondike or call me at Klondike 5. No, just kidding. I don't have a phone number that you can call. Next week on the show, for those of you who want to know, we have another old friend of Den of Lore coming back. It's like the classics of the classics. One of my favorite interviews of all time, which happened shortly after yours, which was Ross Hamilton.
Oh,
And
he's coming back.
he's coming back.
Oh,
I
dude.
gotta. Ross is one of the not he was one of the reasons why I started the show back up, because like Ross several months back, or maybe it was like within the last year, and he
Yeah.
texts me out of the blue, and he's like, "Chris," like, "Yes, yes, Mr. Hamilton, how are you doing? How's everybody? How like how you holding up?" And he's like, "Okay, like, are you still doing the show?" And I'm like, going, "Shit." Like,
Maybe.
no,
Thinking
I'm
about it.
thinking about it now because that was probably one of the funnest times. Like Alex and we sat there, and this was back in the old days when I
Yeah.
did not have kids. Was don't think I was married at the time, and Alex and I would go through 26 or Glenfiddich in a night,
Yeah.
and our mind was absolutely blown. I don't know what is. I We'll wait and see, ladies and gentlemen. Same
This.
time, same channel next week. Check it out
Yeah,
here on the Dentalore.
that'll be cool. I will definitely tune in for that.
It's gonna be fantastic. I don't have outro music
Let me
now.
give you a quick suggestion
Go
too.
for it.
If you want to do a good one of the most fun shows you did back in the old days. I'm not going to say his name, but remember the pyramid water pump guy, the one that
Yes,
that we were like all killing in the chat. You had a couple water pump guys, but you know who I'm
I
talking
know who I'm
about. Like
talking about
he
because
was being like real combative with you, and in the chat we were just like crushing him.
oh my
That was
god.
so
Well,
fun. But
okay. The thing is, like, there's an entire, and one of the reasons behind that for anybody who wants to listen is, it's not that I have a victim complex. I have not even a persecution complex. I
no, this
do
guy.
not like people who are blatantly unethical, or like it's just, like scam artists, people who take advantage of other people knowingly, unknowingly, whether it's individuals, large groups. It's like not cool. Like, keep it above board. Don't be like don't be a skis. Don't steal from people. Don't outright lie or cheat people. It was just the way that I was raised, and I try and hold that out right. And the individual in question, um, from what I had been told from the people who were victims of it, it's like basically, essentially, there was some theft of either intellectual property rights or monetary rights through either, I forget the exact situation, but it was like he was selling the book of somebody else as his own, or he's selling the book and just that who was somebody else's and just pocketing the money. And again, there's the whole, uh, um, you know, his outright bad memeing of a certain other friend of the show, and
The
like
memes.
basically it just got to the point where he would like pop up in conversations, and I would just go to town on him, and like I would get
Oh
somebody else who'd be
god.
coming onto the show, a good friend of the show, John Cadman. And it's like it was just going like we would talk about the water pump, and he'd have his theory. I'm like, and I would just completely destroy him with logic, and he'd be like, "Well, that doesn't make any sense." Da 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 da. I'm like, "Well, let's talk to the expert." I'd like tag John Cadman. He'd come in and just continue on, and it's hours of entertainment. My wife's just sitting there going, like, are you winning yet, son? Like, and
uh,
it was good fun times, but like I'm just like nowadays, like I don't have the time, I don't have the patience,
you
I don't have
just
the
yeah.
effort, and if I look back, I'm like, if I had not done that kind of thing back then, because social media, it's very divisive. It's meant to put you into a pressure cooker with the most
Yeah.
opposite opposing ideas as possible, and then it gets you engaged, and the whole purpose of it is that you're just gonna keep scrolling through and keep seeing ads.
Right.
So I'm like, which is great for my industry because I'm like, hey, that's what I do. But I could have like cured cancer or invented a new Netflix. I could have what could I have done with that time? Probably done more shows, done more content, done more
Yeah.
whatever instead of acting. I digress. The long story of it is hilarious times. I still look back at some going like, oh my god, what?
Yeah. Maybe for the 100th episode, that would be a fun rematch.
Oh god, that's
We could do like a roast or something.
when I'm still figuring out the like the Patreon, considering the people whom have been supporting for a very long time, and Ellen, our old den mother, who is watching the show again, and she's supporting. We are still on Patreon. I it's still there, so you can go check that out. The old episodes at some point in audio and video format. I'm going to release that. We've got about 140, 150 of them or so. The tone is drastically different. You can tell the shift at one point or another as far as when
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow, this was the most amazing thing ever. We're going to find Atlantis to my never meet your heroes. I'll put it that way, especially when it comes to ufology.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a tonal shift, and there's things that you don't necessarily want to be seen unless the people are like, I really got to see this. And sometimes it's
Yeah.
entertaining.
I get it.
It's more you, Denver. You were there for some. I'm talking more
Yeah. Yeah, I
for the
get
viewers
it.
at
And
home.
and there was a shift, but it goes back to what we were saying. Like nowadays, you just got as long as you keep it fun, you're gonna
Well,
be
now I
fine.
don't care.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're fooling this person. I'm like, it's like, man, like I got to pick up
Yeah.
my kids at like 5 and like get to bed by 10 so I can wake up and go to work. You do what you need to do. I'm going to take care of my thing. That's my attitude now.
Yeah.
The effort is not there. Like, but being able to reconnect with old friends, see where the subjects have gone over the last couple of years, and just, as I said, just got to learn some cool shit, which has always been our tagline and our motto. So
Yeah.
I'm going to sign off and wish adieu to, and which is a good evening or goodbye to all those out there for you non-French speaking or francophones in the audience. I hope you have yourselves a wonderful afternoon. Ross next week. I have not announced the rest of the lineup until we're actually booked until May.
Wow.
We got some interesting names coming up, so you're going to love this. We're going to be
Cool.
going into some technology, some AI, some productivity, and touching more. Again, we're always going to have that fun little twist of like, we'll, is this AI assistant for Notepad going to somehow take over the world? With a nod and a wink, because that's the tone now. We got to have fun. So we're going to have fun. Good night. Denver, thank you so much for being a good sport and for taking the time. I thought it'd be about the same time there. You're on the West Coast, so it's like only 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock there. I hope.
Yeah, 9 o'clock. Not bad.
Grab a beer, give my best to the fam, have a good rest, a good weekend, and